bulldozing. It was illegal. We agree with that. We hired a contractor to do a job. We were notified by somebody in the community that these guys were bulldozing much greater than we anticipated or contracted for. They hired a sub. And I have Mr. Eric Boyd here, who's willing to testify. He got out in front of the bulldozer and stopped these guys. And we did stop these guys. We filed a criminal complaint, which is in the materials that we submitted. We filed a complaint against the contractor with the DCCA to show that we were responsible. We admitted that this is what happened, but we didn't know about it. They were stealing ohia logs from the property, which they shouldn't, that we filed a police report about. We were the victim of a crime. Was it illegal? Yes. When we started it, the Department of Public Works said we didn't need a grubbing permit because of the amount of land that we were going to be covering. Based on the scar that was left upon this land, they now cited us for not having a grubbing permit. And at no point in time, even when we were before the board, the land board, a couple of weeks ago, we freely admitted these guys did it. They didn't have permission. We're not here to make an excuse. We're here to take responsibility for that. They fined us about $500-something plus the administrative fees, and we're going to pay that out of the operational budget of the school. So was this bulldozing illegal? Yes, it was. Did we know about it? No, we didn't. And when we found out about it, we stopped it. And the suggestion that we stopped it only after the project was done is misleading at best. We're actually engaged in litigation. As Mr. Torigoy sitting there, we're sending stink lawyer letters back to their lawyers. I mean, it's going back and forth. We haven't even paid them the full amount of the contract because of this dispute. I just want to touch on quickly the location issue. When we're talking about the land use issues, one of the concerns I have, and I think the commission needs to address this, is because the Office of State Planning has found that our proposed use is appropriate on this land. The Department of Land and Natural Resources has found that our proposed use is appropriate for this property and this area. The Board of Land and Natural Resources has agreed that this is an appropriate use on this property with an East Hawaii representative. Regarding the location, people were concerned about about bringing students from other areas in. The question I have is, what about Kamehameha schools out in Kea'a? They service students from Waimea all the way to Ka'u. They bring their students in to the campus. If you want to bring up a location issue or schools should be only limited to a geographical area or a certain district, I challenge that. I don't think that's appropriate here in the 21st century. I think learning happens in a different way. And that's what connections and charter schools are all about, and that's why we represent them. One of the major issues that came up today was traffic. I'd like to, because of his flight, call Phil Rowell to address that particular issue.
Before you begin, maybe you should raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth today before the River Planning Commission?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Ted said my name is Philip Rowell, and I'm the principal of Philip Rowell Associates, and I prepared the traffic impact study. Just for the record, I've been doing traffic for 40 years, not a novice. The last 30 years, I've been practicing in Hawaii, and I am a professional registered engineer in California and Hawaii, specializing in traffic. And for the last 30 years, this is all I've done is traffic impact studies. So just so you know. I prepared the traffic impact analysis report, and the final version of the report is dated June 28, 2010. And I say that because someone kept referencing a traffic study done in 2009. So I don't know if they had the latest version or not. The general approach to a traffic impact study, for everyone's information, is First of all, we establish existing conditions. We go out, we do traffic counts, we get what information we get on the roadways. Then we make an estimate of how much traffic the proposed project is going to generate. And then we superimpose that on the background. And then we do a level service analysis. A level service analysis grades how an intersection is going to operate, A through F. A obviously is the top. It's very low delays, short queues, traffic flows well. Level service F is the opposite end. You can expect long delays, long queues. And the accepted level of service is level service D. Everywhere I have worked, that has been the minimum acceptable level of service. Based on the trip generation analysis, yes, we're going to increase the traffic along Anita, no question about that. The trip generation analysis that I used is based on the ITE standards, it's based on the number of students that's going to be at the school, and it's based on the square footage, and factor all these things in. Unfortunately, this ITE standards does not consider carpools, van pools, busing. It's based on traffic data on the map, and my experience in Hawaii is that Hawaii, we generally get lower trip estimates. In other words, if I take the ITE data and I go out later on and do an actual count, I will probably get something slightly less. I mentioned that because even if, when we added on all the project traffic that we estimate that's going to use Anita Street, we still get the intersection to operate with an acceptable level. And we're talking about level service B, level service B, not D, which is the accepted standard. Even with that, we made some, what I felt was some pretty good, strong recommendations. One, that even though we are having level service A and B along Anita Street, I recommended that we put in the left turn pocket into the project so that people going through would not have to stop. Otherwise, if we didn't put that left turn pocket in, they would have to stop. We also recommended, or I recommended, that we do an interim traffic study at 3 points during the project before it's completed. That was the end of phases 3, 4, and 6. The purpose of those interim assessments was to confirm the trip generation, confirm the trip assignments and intersections, to consider interchanges in the traffic conditions that background. I mention that because I've done another study around our town on Kaumana, and over the last 5 years, the morning peak hour traffic has dropped 7%. So some of these statements about traffic is increasing, that's not, I can't confirm that. And I've been doing a lot of traffic counts lately. We also recommended the traffic management plan, which I think is very important because it gives us a chance to monitor the traffic at intervals every school year to confirm that things are still operating right, make adjustments as needed, and ensure that we meet some of the conditions that one of the departments put on the report. Project is to make sure we have no backups onto the street, and we do not have any long backups at Anita, Kaumana. Make sure we address those issues before they become a problem. The fact that this project is going to be spread out over 25 years gives us not much chance to make those interim improvements periodically. And it also gives us a chance to if we get any negative feedback, interaction with the community, the police department, I'm sure the community is going to let us know if there are any problems. We can do our best to try to attempt to address them and make changes if we need. I want to mention one other thing about the issue of this number of accidents. I do not have access to accident records from the police department. I cannot get them, period. We usually respond to those comments from the police department on a comment letter. And in those cases, we do some communities will set up a pre-consultation meeting with the police department so we can get their issues. So this issue of the accidents kind of surprised me because we didn't hear anything about that before. But I will say that typically, if an intersection operates at a high-level service or a roadway operates at a high-level service, it's a safe road. It means people's not trying to, they're not being delayed, they're driving kind of the way they want to, they don't have to pass. But as that level service goes down, the volumes go up, we can expect access to increase. But since we have level service A and B, the impact analysis would imply that it's relatively safe. But that's certainly something that if we go through and we do these updates, we will certainly reassess that again.
Thank you. Just want to make a quick point here that we have this room, we have to vacate this room by 4 o'clock. We're creeping into that. So what I'd like to do, if it's unacceptable, is that if any of the commissioners have any questions specific for that, we'll do that, and then we can, I think what you did was great there. We can pause that, and then if there's any direct questions, we can address that. If not, we can move forward. Do any commissioners have any questions for the consultant? Seeing none, thank you. Do you want to summarize that, or you good?
Actually, Dakota's gonna come and summarize for us. But the other point I wanted to make is that the board, before the Board of Land and Natural Resources, Chairman Isla said that, you know, in terms of our project and the community, there seems to be a divide. And he was very concerned about that. And we agreed, to the point that we've asked Cindy Fuki in a letter to be the project manager on this project, because we want to reassure the community that what we're doing is correct, especially with them. And if he wasn't willing to do that, then we asked him in our letter to consider being part of the design committee from the community, if we're fortunate enough to get to that point. So we're trying at all points to reach out to the community, and we're not going to stop those efforts. And I know this, I just do want to publicly apologize for my maybe bad sense of humor. I did say that to that woman about, oh, you're from the opposition or scouting the opposition team or something like that. That was a joke, and I apologize, and I should realize that my sense of humor is not really appreciated by everybody, but that was me, so I apologize. Thank you.
This is really short. No, everybody wants to go home. Many of the students who wished to give testimony had to go back to school, leaving us at a bit of a disadvantage. To clarify, not all the students were here because they feel that people opposed them or bully them. We're not so naive. We've kept informed about this project, and we are here to help to assure that the campus is approved. Students from charter schools come from all over. If we say that if you don't belong to the community, you shouldn't be there, we won't belong anywhere. Connections is a diverse community in itself, but again, that's not a reason to be condemned. The accusations to the applicant are sounding more and more personal. Mr. Jeffrey Gomes' statement today got seriously out of hand, in my opinion. If the on-the-line fencing company is nothing but drug dealers and burglars, why are they even a company? And all the community members that say they were unaware of this, do they not watch or read the news? Also, Connections has followed through with all the proper procedures. They have established that there have been multiple attempts to connect with the community. So where was the opposition when this project began years ago? Also, not to mention, I was under the impression that the land was ag land. So why is there denial that there have been agricultural studies on the land? On top of that, this land will eventually be developed by some organization or another. So why not allow that organization to be a school? How is rejecting our proposal and seeking an alternative location working with us? It sounds as though no matter what compromises we make, they just don't want us there at all. I've heard very legitimate reasons for opposing the Kaumana campus today. But again, all the reasons I heard can be resolved with further collaboration between both parties. And all this being said, thank you for listening to me. It's an honor to meet all of you, and I congratulate you on making
Any questions for Dakota or Mr. Hall? Seeing none, thank you. I'd like to get a, Madam Director.
Mr. Hong, as the representative of the applicant, would you be opposed to further community meetings to try and address the traffic and look at whether there's an alternative and a possibility of a connection to Kaumana Extension, and try to see whether that could be worked out?
We're still doing that, and I know Mr. Ono had asked the question whether I told Chris Brojante about that, and I did not. I spoke to his father. I spoke to his father twice in person, once in my office, once in his office. His position is that, in terms of connecting through the Poyanco extension, he's willing to discuss it further. He hasn't said no, he hasn't said yes, but he says he wants to discuss it further. Because I think his granddaughter or niece or something like that went to Connections and appreciates what Connections had provided her. So are we willing to reach out to the community? I think we have to. And we want to do that. I live in that community, you live in that community. So do we want to have for future meetings? Absolutely. I don't think any of us want to continue this kind of hostility where we see bumper stickers posted on the doorways of Connection School down on the west coast.
Commissioner Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question to you as a representative for the applicant, are you willing to accept the condition by having having a primary access through Poyanco?
Well, our legal access right now is through DITA. If you place that condition on us, that would essentially doom the project. I don't know, I mean, it really depends on our relationship and what Mr. Brojante is willing to do. In terms of what we're trying to do, this is where our legal access is on the DITA. But we want to continue, given the concerns of the community, and I said this at the April 2012 meeting to the community members, we will continue to try and negotiate with Mr. Brojante about opening that up.
Madam Director.
Mr. Brillante has a subdivision application in my office for that property, and the preliminary plans that he submitted show an access to Poyanco Extension. So I suggest that perhaps what's appropriate is to get you and Mr. Brillante together in my office to look at his future plans for his property and discuss the viability of an access off of Poyanco Extension that does not address some of the concerns over water and some of the concerns that have additionally been raised, which would still have to be addressed, but at least we could pursue that, and that might give a better picture of what is or is not possible, and then have that discussion with the community rather than basing a decision on what's in front of us today, and see whether, because I really feel like without the possibility of an access off of Poyanco, that it's very difficult to proceed with the project, even if you're talking about a 16 to 25 year build out. And the reason is that you also have to assume over that 16 to 25 years that you have additional infill, that you have additional houses that come up off of Kaumana Drive. And so you've got to address some of that. My other concern is I want to clarify on the traffic impact analysis, was that conducted during a period of time when school was in session at Hilo High and Hilo Intermediate and Kaumana and Ernest B. De Silva? Because if it was not conducted during a period of time when schools were in session, then that could seriously impact. And I'm trying to recall, and I had the impression that it might not have been.
It was.
It was during the school year?
Because this question always comes up.
Okay.
Retrospect.
Any other questions for fellow commissioners? Commissioner Ono?
Yes, I'm just wondering what the direction of the discussion. Would you be acceptable to a deferment of the decision by recommendation by this committee? Because the questions that were asked about Berhanzi, for example, may have an influence upon our recommendation. Right now, I'm very uncomfortable with the question marks that are over the presentation.
Well, one of the swords that that's hanging over Connection's head is that the lease at 90 Mile Gardens is going to expire. And that's why, not like next year, but in the future, and we want to get this project moving along. I think that we've gone beyond what is required in terms of reaching out to the community. I think these issues are pretty well known. Do I want a decision now? I don't know that if we discuss this with Mr. Brojante, if things will change. So what if Mr. Brojante says no? I'm just looking at things off the top of my head. If he says no, then what does that mean to the planning commission? Does that mean that you guys are going to deny our application just for a favorable recommendation to the land board? I think there are appropriate checks and balances in the process currently that, should we get a favorable recommendation here, would alleviate hopefully some of those concerns in the future regarding traffic issues. I think that the recommendations, the amended recommendations from the planning director are appropriate. I think they have appropriate checks and balances. But if you feel that you need additional time to try and hold this negotiation and maybe act as a mediator or certainly as a catalyst to getting a firmer commitment from Mr. Brojante, we welcome that. I don't know necessarily that we need to delay this vote. And the reason why I say that is because certainly we would like to move forward. And if Mr. Brojante at any point in time tells us that, yeah, we'll give you access or an easement in Bronico, we're going to jump at that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gonzalez.
I just want to say too, I'm kind of leaning with what Commissioner Ono was saying here. If you're forcing us to vote today, you might want to think about maybe postponing this. And then, I'm not going to vote on maybe Mr. Brojante will or will not give us permissions, So I guess if we don't vote today, or if we do vote today and we vote no, it's dead, right? It's over. So
Yeah, and we should be handling most of this during our discussion on how we're feeling and what I understand.
yeah, I'm
Well, I
agreeing
just
that with Commissioner Ono over here. Maybe we might want to think about this.
I just checked with my client, and he has no, he agrees that, or my client would be Mr. Thatcher, but Mr. Thatcher says they don't have a problem with postponing this to the next meeting. The only concern I have is now you're going to have actually a different planning commission, only in the sense that Mr. Kern will be gone. And so we're basically going to have to come back to you at square one. I'm hoping we don't, but
Under our rules, what we do is we provide a transcript and all the materials to the new commissioner. And as we have done in the past when we've had a change in commissioners, they read all the material and they have been able to do their jobs well.
okay. So with that being said, then I think that we don't object to postponing this to the next planning commission meeting so we can have a meeting as the planning director suggested with Mr. Brojante.
Thank you. Can I get a motion for an executive session to get some legal advice?
Mr. Chair, I move to go into executive session.
All those in favor, aye?
So I apologize. That was just a joke. That was obviously a
That's okay. I think
okay,
you would
thank you.
find,
Everyone's
as
got
you
a-
get to know me, that I am drop dead hilarious myself.
Everyone's got to
We're
leave
just
the
not
room for
there
a minute.
yet, you and me.
Sorry, and then we'll call you back in. We're just going to consult with our attorney here for a second, and then shouldn't take very long.
This is not going to happen.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
But I want to make sure. 'Cause it's-
right on.
I just got cut off.
you guys,
Just hold on to it.